Alright, we should be live. We're back. We're working on Ygra, Eater of All. We've got it pushed up here so I can loom over our card selection options. Oh, gotta move it a little bit more. There we go. Alright, so we're down to 101 cards, which means we only have 41 more cards to cut. More importantly, we have identified the main problem with why cutting cards has become such a struggle, and it is that when we go down here to our lists of just the cards that are redundant. We have like our removal list, which I have conflated. Like I split it up into creature and non-creature to focus on how many ways I had to actually kill artifacts. Excuse me. Apparently, I'm going to choke to death now that I'm talking. Artifacts and enchantments versus killing creatures. So there was a lot of overlap with the list because anything that could kill any card type was on both lists. So now I've just conflated them into one list so that we could actually see it. But we have all these lists down here that have all of our utility cards that have a lot of redundancy. So we have removal, we have ramp, we have card draw, and the biggest problem with all of this is that this is like 3/4 of our available space in the deck. So there's no actual room for a lot of the other things that we're trying to get into the deck. Because we have 20 removal spells and 10 card draw spells and 10 ramp spells, and it's just like, where are we going to put the rest of the cards that we're trying to get into this deck? Yep, nope, gonna choke to death now. It has been decreed. So, we have to cut a bunch of stuff in order to make room for, the cards that make Ygra unique and interesting as a commander. Now, some of them are on these lists, being able to kill all of our opponent's creatures by killing all artifacts and leaving us with only Ygra in play. Basically, Plague Winding on 3 to 4 mana. A lot of the time, is a cool thing that basically only Ygra can do, because Ygra is going out of its way to be the thing that survives all of the stuff that we're doing. It makes everything else an artifact creature, so it will die while Ygra just sits there and devours all of these lovely, delicious dead cards. So, we have that going for us at least. So, we still need to cut a bunch of things, though, because we just literally do not have room for everything. We already got rid of Decree of Pain. That only leaves us with 2 Wraths that can still kill Ygra in Damnation and Toxic Deluge. And Deluge, we have enough control over it that also might not kill Ygra. We could literally get Ygra into the range of functionally infinite as far as power and toughness versus, we can get Ygra to the point where I can't pay enough life to kill Ygra even if I wanted to. So, only Damnation is really actually threatening to kill Ygra at this point. I'm sorry. I was fine until I started talking for the stream, and now I'm just not going to be fine. Give me 1 second. Let me try and clear it out. Alright, I tried my best. I'm sure this will last all of 30 seconds maximum before I start choking again. So, it's possible we don't need all of the kills only an artifact things that aren't killing every artifact in play. Is there any way we can get rid of all of... what artifacts do we actually still have on the list? If I go looking for them. That's true. It will all start with the thing so we can make it easier on me. So we have Soul Ring, Sensei's Top. Is it literally Soul Ring and Sensei's Top? Ah, right. Wait. I don't normally do the mana cost first. Okay. Or I don't normally do the artifact part first. I usually do the casting cost first. Alright. I messed up somewhere. Yeah, normally I have the casting cost and then the card type. So let's try this again and find all of our artifacts. I was like, it can't just be those two. No. A lot of my things care about artifacts. Bolus's Citadel, okay. Shadow Spear. Heaped Harvest. And the Cybermen Squad. Is that everybody? That's everybody. Okay, so we have, what, 4 to 5 artifacts, and aside from Shadow Spear... Like, Shadow Spear I kind of want in play because it allows Ygra to do Ygra things, but... The other ones I don't super care about. Like, yes, Bolus's Citadel is incredibly powerful, but I'm assuming that I can play it, cast all of my spells for free real quick, as long as I don't run into, like, a pile of lands on top, and then later on blow up all artifacts and still have gotten, like, full value out of it. Yeah, Heaped Harvest, I really could care less if I blow it up instead of getting to sacrifice it, because I need to kill all artifacts in play real quick. And the Cybermen, I'm going to drop them and immediately attack with everything, most likely. Like, that's the reason to cast them in the first place, so. There's not going to be, like, casting them with the idea that we're setting up, because most of our things don't have haste, so it's not like we're setting up by casting them first if we don't have a good attack. It's actually correct to cast everything else first to set them up instead, so. Alright, so we're very light on artifacts. I don't think we cut Soul Ring here. I think Soul Ring, and honest to God, even Mana Crypt might be okay in this deck. Like, it doesn't matter that we will blow them up a lot of the time. It only matters that we got to get Ygra down faster first before killing everything else. So... yeah, we're not really losing anything by getting rid of the artifacts. The only one that we could get rid of that I would miss would be the Shadow Spear. Because that one I kind of really want to keep in play, so blowing that one up hurts compared to the other ones. Because it's giving Ygra Trample and Lifelink, and when we have the enchantments that care that when I gain life so that way the opponents lose life, we're really, really going to want to have not killed the Shadow Spear. So, Shadow Spear, we have to be a lot more careful about when we deploy it. Like, that's not one where you just cast it and, you know, keep playing the game. You cast that deliberately to equip Ygra and attack with it in the same turn. Like, normally if I had an equipment like the Shadow Spear in the deck, I would just cast it early and then try and find creatures to equip it with and start attacking and, you know, all that. In this deck, I don't think you do that. I think you wait until the opponent is vulnerable and you can, like, stick the Shadow Spear and try and get in there for damage, or when you need to, like, play it, remove Indestructible and kill, you know, like an Ulamog or something before it starts attacking and destroying all your permanents. So yeah, we're not running a bunch of artifacts that I probably shouldn't be running with my propensity to destroy artifacts. I think all the ones we still have on the list are perfectly good in the deck and shouldn't be cut just because they're artifacts anymore. We cut a bunch of things that were artifacts that we cut because they were artifacts, basically, and they were going to die randomly, so... I don't think we should cut any of the other remaining ones, though. Brave Pact, Pernicious Deed... Yeah, Pernicious Deed is our only I'm losing this game, flip the entire board card. Like, we have plenty of ways to get rid of other... Like, we can get rid of all artifacts very easily. We can get rid of all enchantments a little bit. Like, that's our hardest card type to destroy a large number of. Because it's really only on the Season of Gathering. Like, I don't want to destroy all enchantments most of the time. We're kind of leaning into the enchantments are one of the things that stick around when I do my cool trick. We have plenty of ways to destroy an individual problematic enchantment, though. That's not too bad. Okay. Alright, so if we can't cut anything from removal, which we kind of can, maybe I stick with removal for another minute or two. Is it possible we kill one or two of the catch-all, kill a single permanent cards? Like, we have... Deed kills lots of different things. The single target ones, we have Beast Within. We're not, maybe not the single target, but the ones that destroy a set number of targets. Whereas Deed can blow up the entire board if we need it to. So we have Beast Within, Assassin's Trophy, Casualties of War, Mortality Spear, Tear Asunder, Windgrace's Judgment, Alpha Deathclaw, and Atomize. So that's 8 cards right there. We need every single one of them. The answer is probably not. So then it becomes a question of which ones do we get rid of. I think we keep Beast Within. It's the cheapest, or, well, Assassin's Trophy is the cheapest, and we definitely keep the trophy. Because it's the cheapest all the time. Beast Within is the next cheapest to hit any permanent, and we don't care about the 3/3. In fact, the 3/3 is probably secretly helping us because it's another body that can die to buff Ygra. Like, it's not normally going to hurt us at all that we're giving out a 3/3 to kill something. Casualties of War does way too much all at once. Tear Asunder can be as cheap as Assassin's Trophy if we need to kill an artifact or enchantment. The problem is that is true of Mortality Spear also. Aside from our commander, we don't really do 1/1 counters mattering, so maybe Atomize can go then. Maybe that's the worst of the group. Like, putting an extra counter on Ygra is no big deal in this deck. Unless Ygra is at exactly 20 power. Putting an extra counter on Ygra does not do anything to help us. Yeah, maybe we can cut the Atomize. Yeah, I do want to keep everything that's still on the removal list. I just don't know if we actually can or not. If we lose the Liliana, we are also losing a token maker and a card draw engine. That's a little rough. Currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't know, maybe we go to 9 ramp spells and it's still fine. We lose like 3 visits or something. We could theoretically lose the Soul Ring. Like it's not a huge deal. Like it will get swept away. We will play it early when we get it and we'll use it to ramp and then it will get swept away with some of our other stuff, but I don't know that that's a huge deal for the deck. And I think it's better when we get it early and we actually get to, cast Cultivate or Kodama's Reach or something a turn ahead of schedule, as we could go Soul Ring into it. Maybe we lose one of the 2-drop ones, and out of all of them, even with its reprints, I'm pretty sure 3 visits is the most expensive for other people to get, so we need to make a little bit more room in the cards where we have redundancy, and I don't think I want to cut the 3-drop ones that get me 2 lands. So that leaves me cutting one of the 2-drop ones that only gets me 1 land. Card draw. Alright, Necro can draw me a bunch of cards. Revel can draw me a bunch of cards. A single turn. Razaketh can draw me a bunch of cards as long as I have the bodies to feed him. Liliana can draw me 2 cards per turn until she's done that twice without plussing. Like, I'm pretty sure she's -3 to everybody sack 2 creatures. Then I will get to draw 2 cards. Season is a one-shot, but it's also... Season is in here for 3 different reasons, and it's very, very good at the one thing I most need it to do, which is destroy all artifacts. So the fact that it can do all of the other stuff... it's my 3rd option and my most expensive one for the destroy all artifacts, but that leaves me with exactly 3 of them to work with, and where it's leaving Ygra alive but killing everything else. That's kind of a thing I really want to be able to do with the deck, so... Yeah, Season of Gathering definitely stays. Normally when a card is doing, like, 3 different things that the deck all kind of wants, it's usually not doing any of them well enough to be in the deck. In this case, it's doing the one thing exactly as well as we need it to, even if it's a bit expensive, because we don't have, a different 3rd option for that effect. And then the fact that we could also either draw a ton of cards off of Ygra, or like get a counter on Ygra and give it Vigilance and Trample until end of turn, so it can just one-shot a player, potentially. Yeah, every mode on this is fine, so... I imagine most of the time we are going to destroy all artifacts and draw cards equal to Ygra's power. That seems like the most likely thing. So yeah, card draw is definitely Season of Gathering's like 2nd mode. I wonder if it's Black Market Connections. Like, everything else on this list can draw me multiple cards in a turn cycle if I need them to. Only Black Market Connections is limited to once per turn cycle. It does help me ramp and can make bodies. So it's not like it's a bad card by any stretch, but I just feel like it's the weakest card draw spell left on the list. Yeah, Baba, Yawgmoth, and Greta are all letting me, and Lily, and Razaketh. Like, all of them are letting me sacrifice creatures to do the thing, which means we're growing Ygra and we're potentially triggering, like, Grave Pact and whatnot, so it's kind of hard to cut any of them unless I'm going to replace them. I might still go back and cut Greta and switch back over to Peregrine, but either way, we're still not going to not have that effect there. So yeah, honestly, it might just be Black Market Connections. This is another one where if you prefer Black Market Connections to one of the other card draws, by all means, but I think the fact that you only get one card per turn cycle is an issue, whereas the rest of these can get you, you know, at least two. At least two. Like, most of them can probably get you more than that in the turn cycle. Some of them require a bit of mana investment is the issue, like the Trail of Crumbs. Even if I have a free sack outlet, I still have to pay the one in order to look at the top two, but I think that's still fine. Like, we can very easily sack multiple permanents in a turn and pay, like, 3 to 4 mana in order to get, like, 3 to 4 permanent cards from the top 6 to 8 of our deck into hand. That does not seem unreasonable. Yeah, the Giving Ygra Evasion is 3 cards, but one of them's, like, locked in already. Like, Giving Ygra Evasion is, like, its third mode out of the 3. Like, the least likely one we are to choose unless it's going to kill a player. But it's still nice to have that as an option, so we're basically, and one of them isn't even using a slot right now. And I do think giving Ygra lifelink is going to be potentially too good to pass up with how we're planning on winning with the deck, so that brings us to our sack outlets, and I really don't want to lose any of these. Out of all of them, the Hypnotist might be the one I can most afford to lose, but I think the Hypnotist plays into what the deck is doing very well. So, if you know the danger is that Ygra gets to be in play and everything else dies to artifact sweepers, what the opponents have to do is either hold a removal spell to kill Ygra in response so that it saves all of their creatures, hold a counter spell, or hold some of their creatures back so that way they have ways to rebuild the board after I sweep everything away. So having a creature that I can turn all of the rest of my creatures into Hymn to Torok. Technically into Mind Rot, but, you know, whatever. If I'm making them discard enough cards. Yeah, if I can turn all of my little fodder creatures that I don't mind losing anyway into mass discard, then that stops any of those things from protecting them. The other issue is that if it's creature kill, then they have to just kill Sadistic Hypnotist in response to me activating the first time, because it is sorcery speed. Problem is, aside from City of Solitude, I can't really stop opponents from being able to interact with my spells. Like, green's really good at stopping the opponent from countering creatures, but not the mass artifact destruction sorceries that I'm running. We have like 2 cards right now that protect Ygra at instant speed. Heroic Intervention and Cameo Safekeeping. So both of those can save Ygra. Somebody goes for the kill spell in response to my wrath, assuming I can cast them in the same turn. Maybe it is the Hypnotist, though. Out of everything on the list, it's the least effective of my sacrifice outlets. The only other one that's really problematic is Razaketh, and that's only because he's an 8-drop. Alright, I definitely want to get rid of these three. We'll consider Sadistic Hypnotist. I do still want it in the deck for the reasons I gave before of how it interacts with the opponents trying to play around our strategies. But I think we can lose these three and be okay. That'll get us below 100 at least. Excuse me. And atomize. That's those three off the list. Brings us down to 98. You're all... Alright, let's go through the list again. See if anything else sticks out as I don't need it anymore. I want to keep the Grim Feast. There's a part of me that knows deep down in my soul it's going. Because it gains me so much life potentially, though, and with all of the I gain life opponents lose, like target opponent loses that much life, it just feels like I can't cut it. But at the same time, it's just not like it doesn't do anything on its own. Is the issue? I need it. Like I need one of the I gain life opponent loses that much life cards in play for this to really do its thing. Here, Tutor, Grave Pack, Survival. If we lose Pattern, we might be able to lose Razaketh. Razaketh is still incredibly strong, though, is the issue. But at least then he's a lot harder to get into play. So there's an argument to be made that we don't need him anymore. It's so incredibly powerful, though, in Aristocrats deck when you get Razaketh down. And we do have Aristocrats elements in the deck. If I had more ways to ramp into him, maybe, if I had like more big mana plays. The biggest thing we have is like spending 3 mana to get 2 extra mana to get us to 5. Like, that still puts Razaketh a little bit down the road. Like, we're not likely to cast him around turn 8. Aside from Razaketh, what are we hoping to cheat into play with Pattern of Rebirth? Like, obviously, any utility creature at the time that it's relevant is good. You know, getting the Hypnotist or getting Manglehorn or something to kill like a particular artifact or creature at the time, and then have the effect going. Still fine. Honestly, we'd probably tutor the 3/4 at that point, though, and I guess it depends. If I think they're going to try and combo out with like haste creature thing, any of the Splinter Twin variant combos where they just make infinite creatures, Splinter Twin, Kiki, the spells that make a copy of a creature combined with creatures that make copies of spells on the stack. Yeah, any of that sort of thing. It's nice to have the Manglehorn, since all of their creatures would be artifacts at that point, and they'd all come into play tapped and fail. Endevis is a decent one to tutor for. We did lose the doubling season. It's a cool trick, but maybe we don't need the Pentavis. I do like how it works in the deck. It's like, spend a mana, remove a counter, make a creature, sack that creature to put the counter back on it, Essentially lets us pay 2 mana to put 2/1/1 counters on Ygra, which is neat and all, but I guess it's not worth it since we cut some of the other stuff. It is nice though with the like the Grave Pact effects too. Like we pay one, we remove a counter, then we pay one and sack it. Now everybody else has to sacrifice a creature, and all we've done is make the counter wobble back and forth off of this thing for 2 mana. It does a lot while it's in play. I just don't know that we need it. Yeah, I'm wondering if we can cut some of these more expensive plays and just streamline the deck a little bit. So then maybe we have room for like 1 or 2 more spells. Like we only need like 38 land or something instead of the full 40. We definitely keep Fangren Marauder. If I'm trying to kill my opponents by gaining life and making them lose life, gaining 5 life every time an artifact dies in this deck is just absolutely insane. Blood Artist is staying for right now. Dictate of Erebos, Defiant Bloodlord, Cutthroat, Mention, Manglehorn. Yeah, I'm thinking we might just streamline the deck, which means Parent of Rebirth can go and we get rid of Razaketh. That's so silly. This is the deck. This is the type of deck that he thrives in, usually. So... But we don't need him. I wonder if we can cut Pitiless Plunderer. I was thinking this as we were going through. It's like, what if we cut Pitiless Plunderer? Because our creatures dying give us artifact tokens, which is fine, because it's giving us mana for our creatures dying. And maybe I still want to keep it because of that. But we have, like, the Warren Soul Trader to turn our creatures directly into treasure if we needed to. And the treasure token itself isn't... We cut a lot of the things where the treasure token itself is relevant. We only really have Chatterfang. And if I swap Greta for Pippin, then Pippin making the food tokens when I make a treasure is relevant. Yeah, we might keep Pitiless Plunderer for right now, but it's getting a lot closer to being a cut than it was originally. So Karn hoses their artifacts, which, you know, we only have 3 activated abilities we want to do with artifacts now. So, not like we have to worry about somebody stealing our Karn. Although we do want to be able to sacrifice our creatures if we don't have another outlet. That's true. We can't sacrifice our creatures to our other creatures' abilities if somebody steals our Karn. It's not like a huge concern, but it is a minor concern. I don't know that we need them. It is nice shutting off their ability to turn their creatures into food. Like, into life, rather. They're always food. Being able to actually eat that food, though, is a completely different thing. And Karn shuts that down pretty well, and shuts down their mana ramp. Karn's probably too good, but it is getting closer to being a cut. Can see cutting Liliana. Card draw, she's removal. Like, not great removal because it's a sacrifice, but still. And she's a source of token creatures as fodder for my other things. I don't want to cut her, but I can definitely see cutting her. Crumbs, Shadow Spear, Bastion I want to keep. I mean, I want to keep everything at this point, so... Witherbloom if I'm cutting the other really expensive spells. I think I still want her. I think she's a bit too strong in this deck, whereas Pentavis is making colorless creatures, and can only really do the thing where I move the counter on and off of it. Witherbloom is making black and green creatures, so it works with Savra, while working with all of the other stuff too. And I can pay 10 life to untap my lands, which is definitely something I can afford to do way more often than you normally would be able to in other black-green decks. Like, we do potentially gain tons of life in this deck, which could allow me access to a lot more mana from Witherbloom. Like, obviously we can only do it once per turn, but that's still, we might be able to do it like 2 or even 3 turns in a row if we need the mana. So, kind of a huge deal. We don't have as many mana sinks, though, if I'm cutting things like the Pentavis. But even then, just making a 1/1 literally every turn, so we make you like somewhere between 3 and 4 per turn cycle, is probably too good. Keeping Dina, she's a sack outlet and a drain when I gain life, so. Yeah, her ability to get +X+O is almost meaningless in this deck. We can potentially give her the same things we're giving Ygra to get Ygra through for damage, so it's not actual nothing, but it's kind of close. We don't have a ton of huge creatures I'm willing to sacrifice to Dina in order to get the damage through a lot of the time. Parasunder, Affectioners, one of our ways to go infinite in this deck, so I do want to keep that. Vein Ripper is another one where it's on the expensive side, but the fact that it drains 2 when a creature dies is probably too good. Like, we already have a bunch of the drain 1s that are cheaper, but the Vein Ripper getting to drain 2 is a much faster clock, and if I'm not going infinite, way more likely to kill our opponents. Like, once I'm going infinite, it doesn't matter what the drain effect is, obviously, as long as it's doing at least 1 to somebody. We'll get there. But for actually killing opponents, I think the Vein Ripper. I think the only downside is that it's triple black, and I think we're going to lean heavier green with the deck. Obviously, we want to get like our dual lands first, whenever possible. But it's a minor thing to keep track of. It's the same for Necropotence, though, so that one's even more intensive because we could potentially need to get it out sooner, so. Still want to keep the Skeleton. Talons of Wildwood for getting Ygra through once it's big enough. Vito, Dogmoth, Shatterfang, Soul Trader, Babala Saga. Don't want to get rid of any of these. Lightmound, Vein Witch, Druid, Cyberman Squad, Deathclaw. Alright, so we get rid of these and Pattern. Let me go grab the Razaketh from the other list. Did not consider Eldrazi when I typed in Raz. The last one is Eldrazi again? Oh no, it is Razaketh. Right, sack outlets and card draw. Yeah, Razaketh is real good in decks like this, but I think we can streamline the deck a little bit by cutting him, so. Yeah, his only drawback is that he's 8 mana. I have seen Razaketh do incredible work in full-on Aristocrats decks, though, so it is weird to cut him. I think if we were going by more traditional Aristocrats route, where I always have Ashnod's Altar and Phyrexian Altar as my sack outlets, I'd be a lot more inclined to keep Razaketh in the deck, but since we're not doing that, I think we can afford to lose him. Yeah, we still need over 30 cuts. And I don't want to lose any of the cards left on the list. So this is just getting uglier and uglier the more we go. It could be Hypnotist. I guess technically it could be Glissa. We still only get to kill one thing per turn cycle with her, but she is reusable. Because we have the Manglehorn, we have the Druid, and then we have all of our things that can kill any card type. It's just such a powerful effect to have access to, though. Like, I'm going to cast my spell, but before I actually use this mana, I'm going to activate Glissa and kill your guy. Yeah, it just seems way too good to be able to do that. She might still go, like, be... A lot of things are just too good to cut at this point, so it might be that we need to cut her because we're not cutting something else. Daya, Awakening Zone, Exsanguinate. It might still be Exsanguinate. Like, this is the thing I've been talking about in a lot of the other videos where it's like Exsanguinate is going to the same place, but it's not on the same road as all of the other cards. Like, how it's getting there is different. All of the other cards are like, my creatures are going to die, and that's going to generate huge amounts of value. This is just, no, you lose X and I gain X, and then hopefully you all lose X again, and then you die. Like, you lose double X because I'm gaining X. I feel like it should be one of the last cards I cut, but, you know, then I keep going and I don't cut anything. But yeah, Exsanguinate, not because it's not good enough, it's certainly doing a thing that the deck wants to do. It's just everything else is doing it in a very specific way, and Exsanguinate is like, no, I'm gonna do it my way, and the end result is still very good, but the way it does it is not on topic, and I'm way more interested in building a fun Ygra deck than I am building a deck where I gain life, you lose life, and that's why you die. In general, because I think there are better commanders for that, and you're probably better off in white-black if that's going to be your main goal. The reason we're doing it with Ygra is because Ygra lets us gain life by sacrificing creatures, which we're planning on doing anyway. So, in that regard, it's still, like I said, it's all going to the same place. It's just how it's getting there is different. And I'd rather get there along the path that Ygra is encouraging than to do something parallel to it. And I need cuts. I need like 30 some odd cuts, even if I'm willing to go down a land or two now that we've cut most of the sevens. Oh, excuse me. Accidentally inhaled a little of my soda there. Hey. Alright. It's okay. I didn't die. You can tell by the way you can still hear me. Hey. Terra Sunder. Alright, we still have Mirix on the list. Now, granted, it's a land, so I'm not cutting it, but it is kind of funny we still have Mirix on the list. I had forgotten that was even on the list. Because it makes artifact creature tokens. I guess there's a small chance we could cut Vein Ripper. Just as another one of the way more expensive cards in the deck. We don't need to cut everything expensive, though, and 6 mana is very doable with our land ramping cards, so... And I do still like it as a much more powerful Zulaport Cutthroat. You know, we're spending 3 times the mana, but we're getting, you know, a much larger and more dangerous body, plus twice as much drains for 3 times as much mana, so... Probably still too good. But at the same time, if I'm not cutting Vein Ripper and I'm not cutting Exsanguinate, I'm not cutting any of these cards, you know, then we just get to the end of the list and it's like, okay, you didn't cut anything, so you still need to cut 35 cards. I don't know what you were expecting when you didn't cut a single card from the list, but you still need to cut every card you needed to cut before. Yeah, okay, maybe we lose the Vein Ripper then. We lose the Exsanguinate. Just because they're... Like, the Vein Ripper is on the more expensive side. I'd rather have, like, the Alpha Deathclaw and the Cyberman squad than the Vein Ripper right now. And the Exsanguinate is just not winning the way I want to with this deck. Like I said, if you want to improve the power level of the deck, you probably cut, like, one of the other random cards that I'm going to wind up keeping and put Exsanguinate back in. But also, if you want to win that way, this probably isn't the best deck for doing that. I think, like, a black-white deck that cares about life gain and life loss is doing you way better for killing with Exsanguinate at that point, so... 93. Still need to cut, like, 30-ish cards off this list. Right? How much time do we have left? 47, so we're getting close to time anyway. Let me just do a quick count, make sure that I'm still need all these cuts. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, that's a land, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, our commander is 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72. I only have 72 cards. How did I have 20 more on the list than I thought I did? Well, that makes it a lot easier. That makes it infinitely easier. We magically cut 21 of the cards when I wasn't looking. No, that makes it insanely easier now. Oh my god, I'm so glad I did that. We can actually, like, finish Ygra. I might even, like, push now, because we're this close. No, that's, like, way, way easier than I thought it was going to be. Yeah, if we magically don't have to cut 20 of the cards still on the list and we only have to cut 10 of them, 10's a much more doable number. Alright, so I still kind of want to keep the Grim Feast. Something popped into my head while I was doing the count. Now I've forgotten which card it was. Or I was like, maybe. Oh, maybe we can cut Grave Robber and add in, like, Bojuka Bog and possibly the Desert for Graveyard Hate, because then we still have Necrogenesis. This would be the first time I've run a black green commander deck without Grave Robber or Skoos, but I think we want non-creature ways to interact with the graveyard, so that way they don't get blown up along with our other stuff. The Grave Robber could be a cut. I think it was Grave Robber. Let me double check though. There might have been something else I saw. Yeah, no, that makes this way easier. I thought we still needed so many more cuts than we do. Oh, Pitiless Plunder probably can go. It's nice, it's powerful. Again, you could make the argument to keep it over other cards that I'm keeping. But I think we're fine. Okay. That feels so much better, honestly. I had no idea how I was going to cut 20 more cards off this list, and I don't know how the number got so screwed up. Like, normally it's off by like 5 at the most or something. Like, at some point in time, I just miscounted horribly and thought I had 20 more cards than I did. Bond has to stay. Soul Trader is staying. Babala Saga. I think we can lose the Plunderer, so let me do that. And real quick, let me see what my other utility lands are. Let's see if maybe... So, Bayou, Bloodstained, Polluted, Windswept, Wood Foothills, Rot Farm, Overgrown Tomb, Mosswort Bridge, Marsh Flats, Misty Rainforest, Verdant Catacombs. We do have Bojuka Bog on the list already. Rogue's Passage is on the list. Crypt of Agadim, or not Agadim. Well, it's Agadim the Undercrypt, but it's not Crypt of Agadim, which is the other one. Woodland Chasm, Boseiju, Haunted Mire, Mirix, Arador, The Shire's fine. Restless Cottage is fine. Mortuary, Omori Vault, Fountain Port, Fell the Profane, Spymaster's Vault, Command Tower, and Minas Morgul. So I actually don't have a ton of room for lands. Just to make it easier on myself. So we have 31, but there's like 3 that are on the list. So we actually have like probably 28. Right, so we have 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we have 28 non-basic lands on the list. So there's only room for like 12 or so. Lisa. Hello. Yeah, we're making a Ygra Eater of All commander deck. Welcome to the channel. Yeah, we only have room for... We'll have room for about 38 lands, so... Got a big pile of non-basics. So we're not going to have very much room for the swamps or forests. I don't think that's a huge deal with Ygra. I do like to have enough room, though, so that we don't lose to like a random Blood Moon or something. Especially since we have enough artifact and enchantment hate to get out from underneath it. As long as we can cast our spells. Okay, so we don't have a ton of room to add in, like, Scavenging Grounds. We already have Bojuka Bog though, so I mean, I would certainly expect you to be new to the game if this is your first time encountering non-basic lands. So yes, I can see that. So what are we gonna do? Have so we don't need the full 11. We can probably get by with 8 or 9 more cuts. And Ygra will be all set. Then we can start working on our first Dustmourne commander. Ooh. No idea which one I'm going to wind up picking yet. Alright. Coming back down to the sub list for removal, because I'm thinking about Glissa. It's really nice to just be able to blow up an artifact every turn cycle with Ygra, but I think the best thing for trying to not only make decks but for getting into the game is at this point probably finding a local card shop that runs events, especially if they do like um, like a game night or something where it's not actually a tournament. But even if they do tournaments, there's usually people that play games between rounds, and you can find a lot of people that can give you advice for the game. I'm really bad for players that are brand new to the game. I tend to get way too deep into things. I'm really good for when you have a basic grasp of the game and you're looking to improve. I'm usually pretty good at helping people with that, but I'm not always the best person if you're trying to build your very first deck or something, because a lot of times newer players don't know what they're trying to do yet, and I just start throwing way too many options at people. As somebody who's been playing for like 30 years and has access to all of the cards, I have a lot to pull from, but also that tends to get very overwhelming very quickly if you don't have some idea of where you wanted to start. Like if you're looking for the basics for like Commander or something, I highly recommend um just getting like, even if you just get like one of the starter decks or something, and just uh find like a shop that does a Commander night or something, and just play with people and get to know the game better. Um, if you need to practice playing the game and you're worried about interacting with people and looking foolish because you don't know the rules, Arena is a free to download. It's not, well, it's a free to play model, which means you get very little by playing freely, and then you get more stuff by investing money later on. But you don't have to invest the money in order to practice against the computer with just like pre-constructed decks that it gives you. So this would let you get to know the rules better. Uh, yeah, if you're looking for just like 60 card constructed, um, usually like at the beginning, and then you can adjust later on, you're usually looking for about 24 lands, give or take, out of the 60 cards. So another like 36 spells after that gives you a reasonable starting point. But every deck is different, and some of them want a lot more lands. Some of them don't need quite as many, but they still. It's very rare to not have at least 20 lands, even in the more aggressive decks, unless you have other mana sources that are cheap and/or free in the deck, so that way you don't have to worry that you didn't draw the land. You can still play them, and they'll still have the same function. Yeah, if you the two best ways to actually learn how to play the game are doing the playing against the computer, practicing on Arena to get the very basic rules down, and just playing with other people. Let them know that you're new and that you're looking for casual games. A lot of places that do tournaments, even if they only do tournaments, they usually have people that are there early for the event, and you can probably find somebody that will at least play a little bit against you and give you some experience with actually playing the game with other people at that point. And there are usually people that are there I'm a person that if you find me at the local game shop and you need to know rules interactions, I will explain everything as it comes up. To the best of my abilities. But like I said, I do have a tendency to overwhelm newer players, because once I get started talking about Magic, I tend to just keep on going. And I have a whole lot to draw from, so. I have the Druid. I have all of the one-shot ones. I have a very real chance of actually cleaning up deck space, too, for the Chthonian Nightmare now. Now that we're this close. If we can get Nightmare in, we can lose Glissa, because then we can eventually recur the Manglehorn or the Druid, so. Yeah, okay, let's get rid of the Glissa for right now. I think. Yeah, I've been wanting to get the stupid Nightmare on the list for a while, so let's add the Nightmare so that way I can do the other cuts based on the idea that we'll actually have access to Nightmare. Modern Horizons, so. Oh no, it's C. Chthonian? That might be wrong. Help me out, Gatherer. CH. CHTH. Okay, that was the problem. I did need the other H there. I was like, no, the H comes after the T, but it also comes before the T. Chthonian Nightmare. And then a black enchantment. Alright, so we cut the Glissa off the list, but we don't actually remove a card. Because I've been wanting to get the Nightmare in ever since I realized I was running all these cheap creatures anyway. And this way we can just recur all of our things. If we have the Nightmare, do we need the Vane Witch Coven? At first I want to say yes, but we do also have Grave Robber still on the list, and we can flip Grave Robber to rebuy creatures, so if we were to lose the Nightmare and then we lost Eternal Witness, because we can use the Witness to get back Nightmare, we can use the Nightmare to get back Witness, but if we lose both of them, then we need a way to get one of them back, so that way we can start the loop again. And we currently have Grave Robber and Vane Witch to do that. We need the Defiant Bloodlord, keeping the Manglehorn, Ravenous Chupacabra. Could still cut Karn. Still seems really good in this deck, though. I think he's the slight bump in power level that the deck really wants. Ooh, that is a far ride. Not the worst one I've ever had, but definitely up there. Do you have friends nearby who play? Anybody in your area where you could potentially get together for like a kitchen table game then? Yeah, it's even worse then. It definitely pushes it over the top. Yeah, 4 hour drive when you're not the one, when it's not your car and you have to talk somebody else into going. Like that only works if you know somebody who's on their way out there and you want to go with them. Yeah, usually I only go that far if it's for like a major tournament event, and even then I almost never do it. Yeah, I think the last time I had to go that far to play Magic was um, for a Grand Prix for Theros in Philly back in the day. In that case, I do recommend Arena. Like, you don't have to put any money into it in order to play. Like I said, you can play the game against the computer in order to help you familiarize yourself with the rules better. Um, and to get because Arena will do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Like if you're not sure how cards would interact, Arena will tell you, and it will warn you sometimes for particular plays. Like it's good about helping people learn about things like Ward and um, things like that because it will tell you about them and explain them, and you can read the cards and get the oracle text and a little explanation of any of the rules. When you look at the cards, you can pull up the actual like rules text for them and everything, so that can help. Um, and then once you get more familiar with it, you can still play against other people. Like you don't have to put any money into it. A lot of the times you are going to lose to people who have either spent a ton of time grinding on it or have put money into it. Though that's just an unfortunate fact of Magic. Though is that you run into people like that when you're still new and starting out and don't have the resources that everybody else does. But at least you get to play the game and get to see how the cards interact and everything. And it will help you get a better grasp of the rules so that way when you do find people to play with in real life, then you have a better understanding of the game. So that way you're not just jumping into the deep end of the pool. Because Magic is an extremely complicated game when you get into it, and there's not a whole lot to help with that. I do think Arena is one of the better things that they've done for that when you're new and you need to learn it, but I mean honestly, so the basic idea is that you can only run four of any one card in the deck at a maximum other than the basic lands. Um Past that you are looking for a mixture of creatures and spells. You want your for beginner decks, it's a lot like building limited. So you want mostly creatures with some supportive spells. You're usually looking for cards that can remove creatures. Um, Black has a lot of creature removal. Greens is mostly creature based. Like you will need things that this creature fights target creature, or this creature
deals damage equal to its power to target creature. Those type of effects, in order to get creature removal into green. Um, Generally, you want like a 3 or 4 to 1 creature to spell ratio in the beginning. Some decks can work really well with a lot of um, like non-creature spells and just focus on that and ignore the creatures, but normally newer players don't have the higher rarity cards that make those kind of decks work very well. So in the beginning, a lot of decks play very similar to the limited format, which is you get a handful of packs to work with, and those are the only cards you get to use. Um, Either sealed deck where you just keep the packs and you use all of the cards from the packs to build a 40 card deck, or draft where you open each pack and pick a card and pass the pack to another player and take a pack from the player from the other side of you and keep going until you've gone through all of the packs and everybody has 3 packs worth of cards, and then you build the deck from those, also 40 cards in that case. um, so non-creature spells are sorceries, instants, enchantments, and artifacts that aren't themselves creatures and don't make creatures. Um, if they are creatures, in addition, because there are artifact creatures, there are enchantment creatures, um, or if the spell's primary or only purpose is to make a creature, because there are cards that only make creature tokens, which are an object that you put into play to represent um, a creature that isn't actually a card. There are a lot of cards that make tokens in Magic as a way to generate additional resources into the game, or to have a card that's not a creature also make a creature in addition to whatever else it's doing. So, those can be represented. A lot of the booster packs have token cards in them that represent a specific type of token, but you can also just use anything that can be clearly delineated as a token. Back in the day, like, 20 some odd years ago, we do things like use coins with like one side of the coin representing it being untapped and flipping the coin over representing it being tapped, so you could maintain board state and whatnot. But you don't actually need the token. Like I said, any object that can represent the token is fine, as long as it can be easily determined that it's, either tapped or untapped. That's basically all you need. Coins are decent, but anything, playing cards, like I've had people use, like, from a regular poker deck just to represent the card. Um, Especially if they don't want to have to figure out how to represent the power and toughness so that everybody can keep track of it. They will. A lot of tokens have like equal stats where their power and toughness are the same, so they'll just use, if they made a 2/2 token, they'll use like the 2 of diamonds or the 2 of clubs or something to represent it. Things like that. But yeah, you don't actually need a physical Magic the Gathering card to represent the token, or an official token to represent it. Especially if you're just playing kitchen table Magic. Big tournaments, they not only prefer that you have the actual token, but they will usually, you can find a judge that has the tokens if you desperately need them to help maintain game state, or that have, like, I know there are people around me that use these little like laminated tokens that they can write on with like dry erase markers, and then they can erase them and write different things, so they can just write down what the token is on the thing. But yeah, so yeah, I'd go with, usually want, like I said, it's like 24 lands is usually good for a 60 card deck. So that leaves you with 36 spells. So you probably want like 34 creatures and 12 non creatures per deck. And you want the non creatures to be either things that kill creatures, augment your creatures, let you draw cards, um, take away opponents' resources, making them discard cards, destroying other card types, that sort of thing when you can. And just try and the hardest thing is to balance out the two decks when you're first starting out because you don't know what's good. So feel free to adjust, like take cards out that aren't working, add cards in that do different things to try them out. Also, one of the things that newer players have a lot of trouble with is the idea of a curve. So everything has a cost to cast, and you don't want to have too many things that cost too much, otherwise you won't be able to do anything in the early game. And your opponent, if they can do stuff in the early game, will just get way too far ahead before you can do anything. But you also don't want too many small things a lot of the time because they tend to have lower impact on the game as the game goes on. So if you can't win in the early game, then if you have too many little guys, they might just get overwhelmed by a couple of large creatures getting in their way, and all of a sudden you can't get in for the last few points of damage. So you want to try and have like a decent amount. You want to focus on like the 2, 3, and 4 drops, but it's okay to have a couple of ones, especially if they do something really powerful in the early game. And you want a couple of like big finishers or ways to catch back up if you fall behind at the top end. But yeah, if you're just going for 2 decks so the 2 of you can play, I think that's the best advice I can give for somebody who's just starting out. Alright, so we added in the Nightmare. We still have 71 cards on the list, so we still need... Yeah, we still need like 10 cuts. Sure. It's going to time you out when you post the link because it does that automatically. I'll untime you out once it does, but go ahead. I'll still be able to see the link. So yeah, for those of you who are watching for the deck building portion, I'm going to call it here and go back and cut it off here, but I'll keep helping Lisa with her cards for right now. So, but thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.